Right, Minister, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this fantastic venue. Great to see you, Minister, here. I know you're very, very busy, but to squeeze in, a little bit of time here is terrific. I gather you're in listening mode today, as you always are, and maybe you might say a few words later on. But it really is tremendous to have a day ahead of us here to look at one of the aspects of an award that came through the Butler Trust some time ago, and the team came down to Buckingham Palace for that award. It was a project that stood out from the very start when we read all the citations involved, and we're here today to learn as much as we can, not only about what's gone on, what currently is the status of Theatre Nemo, but more, I'd hope, that somewhere we can all take some ideas away from here today, and from a small idea we can build on and take the work forward. Being in a theatre here today, could I just mention any form of voices off or noises off stage? Could you switch your mobile phones off? So anything that happens hereafter is live. Should you also see the odd bewigged figure or strange figure anywhere in the building here, that's a reminder this used to be the Sheriff Court. So just ignore them, basically. I think most of the prisoners did in those days as well anyway. And without further ado, we're going to crack on. And I'm going to introduce Isabel McHugh to you. She's going to say a few words about Theatre Nemo. But what I do also want to say, and I don't think anyone else in here knows this, that only this morning, in addition to all the many other plaudits, we've learned that Theatre Nemo have won a Lifetime Achievement Award, and this came from the Scottish Association for Mental Health, and the citation is for sustained dedication to the mental health sector from that association, and the award will be presented later this month. So that can't be a better backdrop than to present the success of Theatre Nemo. And Isabel. Isabel? Happy time.
Get my right page here. Hello everybody, and I'm very glad to see you all here today. I would like to thank a few people, but I'm only going to thank one because I don't have an awful lot of time to speak, and that's Frank Gibbons, because he was the very first person that invited us into Barlinnie, and that's where this has all come from, so thank you very much, Frank. I just want to tell you a wee bit about Theatre Nemo to give you a bit of background. The Theatre Nemo was started by people who had been caught up in the system and realised that there was an awful lot of gaps there. And there was great big holes that was in this net that was supposed to catch vulnerable people. So Theatre Nemo started at the grassroots, and it's guided by the very people that it's there to support. And I'm often asked why Theatre Nemo is so successful. And I think it's because our first commitment is to the people who come to our workshops. It's not to the funders, it's not to the government, and it's not to the ticky box brigade. And people sense this. They know that it's for them, and they respond to that. So the whole point of the conference today is to let you all experience a tiny bit of the process of these creative workshops, and to hear about some of the benefits and the value of this kind of intervention, and to see it as a real valuable tool to help people. People who find themselves trapped in a way of life, to be able to access through these creative workshops the skills and the confidence to find a way out. And the fact that you're all here today shows that there is a commitment to take this work forward, but the big question is, how do we do that? The Theatre Nemo has been facilitating workshops in Barlinnie for over 4 years now. And this development plan that we're working towards with the Butler Trust and Scottish Prison Service is to find a way to work with other agencies such as the Choose Life, and to find the best way to promote and encourage people that's leaving Barlinnie and other prisons to continue attending the workshops in the community. so that there's plenty of support in place that when they leave prison, they're able to build on these talents and skills that they've achieved instead of them being lost and them drifting back to the same old ways. Now, another avenue that needs attending is the families of prisoners, and especially the children. And the words of this song says it all. I believe the children are our future. Treat them well and let them show the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride. And we don't do this. There are too many broken children, and there's too many broken adults. They've never had the chance to heal. They can't go into a supermarket and buy a packet of healing for the mind, body and spirit. But we have a great opportunity here to heal some of these wounds. Can you imagine people creating rather than destroying? And can you imagine people having confidence, real confidence, not a confidence they get for drink or drugs or carrying a knife, but real confidence in themselves and pride in themselves to be able to achieve a better life. So I hope you enjoy today, and between us all, we can find a way to make this happen. And can I also draw your attention that in our pack is a flyer for a Mad Hatter's Tea Party fundraising event. So spread the word, show it to your pals, and I thank you very much and hope you enjoy today. Thank you.
No wigs there. That's just a little taste, and throughout the day we'll be having various other presentations which may even come from the audience. But it's now my pleasure to introduce John McCaig. John was wearing a crown in his hat and an officer at Barlinnie when I think I was still in shorts, or maybe it was the other way round, I'm not sure. But John has got huge experience in the Scottish Prison Service. He's served in most appointments. He's currently Deputy Chief Inspector and brings to all of us a great deal of experience of all parts in the Scottish Prison Service and custody. And when John speaks, he speaks with great authority, and he's now going to speak having been part, along with Bill McKinlay, in introducing Theatre Nemo into Barlinnie. He's going to say a few words and really set us in context about the way forward and where we've been with something like Theatre Nemo in a prison context. John.
Thanks very much, Clive. I've never had a build-up like that before in my life. I think I'll get you to come to my next peer review meeting. Okay, thanks. Depriving a person of their liberty can often have far-reaching consequences regarding maintenance of family relationships, employment, housing, and of course mental health. Many people admitted to Scotland's prisons suffer from some form of mental ill health. Whilst I was Deputy Governor at Barlinnie, it was obvious to all of us involved in the delivery of activities that we were not doing enough positive work with those people suffering from mental ill health. As a consequence, we embarked on a multifaceted change programme which was designed to improve facilities and services in the area of mental health. It was while we were working on this that I was first introduced by Frank Gibbons, healthcare manager at Barlinnie, to Theatre Nemo in the shape of Isabel, Hugh and Ricky, who Frank had brought in for a meeting with me. At this meeting, Isabel explained that Theatre Nemo was working in the community and in hospitals, helping people with mental health problems. She also emphasised that it was possible that this work could be equally beneficial to people in prison. Whilst I could readily understand how their work might be beneficial to some people, I was not immediately convinced that circus or drama skills was something that Barlinnie prisoners would commit themselves to, especially those whose mental health was poor and motivation skills low. At this point, I was not convinced either that this was necessarily an effective use of scarce resources. I soon became aware, however, that Isabel is not someone who is easily put off by a sceptical Deputy Governor, and sometime later she obtained funding to undertake work in Barlinnie. We were then forced into a situation where we had to try and accommodate this short-term addition to a regime, which at best might be described as basic. In such a situation, one immediately thinks about the possible risks and how these might be mitigated. I started this by reviewing how the Scottish Prison Service had approached mental health problems over the years. The conclusion was quickly drawn that Theatre Nemo could not possibly be any more harmful than locking someone in a bare cell for 23 hours a day without even a mattress to lie on during the daytime hours, no footwear, and only a shapeless canvas gown to wear. This certainly did nothing for social stimulation or self-esteem. Prisoners also used to be placed on Governor's report for self-harming, with the inevitable outcome that 3 days would be often added to their liberation date. Not exactly an effective way of improving an individual's mental health. It's worth emphasising that the development of mental health interventions, such as Theatre Nemo, were a huge challenge to the established cultural norms of the prison. In a prison, so many people have to work together to make an intervention a success. In the evaluation report of the Choose Life projects, one project worker is quoted thus: "Sometimes we phone over for people, but they don't come, and we don't get a proper explanation of why. Sometimes we find out that people wanted to come and didn't get to, but the reason is not clear." Another outlined the challenge as, "The way prison officers can often act at times, if they don't like it, prisoners won't get involved in it." One great advantage in dealing with some of the negativity to the Theatre Nemo pilot was the communication skills of Hugh and Ricky and the willingness of some staff to go the extra mile to make this and other projects a success. The pilot culminated in a drama presentation in the prison chapel in front of an invited audience of family, prison service staff and guests from NHS and the voluntary sector. The drama was a culmination of the thoughts and ideas of the prisoners who attended the workshop. The result was an incredibly powerful piece of work detailing how incarceration, the interaction with prison and criminal justice staff, impacted on their mental health and their self-esteem. This took us, the audience, behind the facade which is presented on a daily basis by individuals in prison, to those deeper and very personal thoughts which tend to come to the fore only during private moments. It was impossible for those of us present not to be moved by what we saw and heard. So what conclusions were we able to draw from this short pilot? There was no doubt that once participants conquered their individual apprehension about sharing their innermost thoughts within the group and subsequently sharing them in public and drama form, they were clearly uplifted by the audience reaction. In conversation, participants explained how beneficial it had been to participate in the workshops and discuss their thoughts and feelings in a safe environment. A decision was taken to seek funding to extend the participation of Theatre Nemo, and a successful bid was made to the SPS Choose Life Fund. This led to further very impressive pieces of work, including a DVD, a drama production, and a presentation of newfound drumming skills. From my perspective, it was very satisfying to see people who only a short time previously had seemed so lacking in motivation, appearing to get so much enjoyment out of performing in public. Sometimes, many of us are reluctant to become involved in mental health interventions because we don't know enough about the subject matter. Yet Dr. Chiswick, in a report published in 1985, following suicide clusters in young offenders institutions at Glenorchy, indicated that just to recognise an individual's distress is in itself therapeutic. Prisoners will often report that just having someone who will take the time to listen to them is incredibly helpful. In many of our prisons today, where they are experiencing very high numbers, it is difficult for staff to spend quality time with prisoners who are feeling low or who are behaving bizarrely and affecting the smooth running of a busy residential unit. The Chief Inspector of Prison regularly highlights this as one of the 9 evils of overcrowding, and I quote, "Prisoners will have less access to staff. Those staff will have less time to deal with them." One of the major challenges facing prison governors is how to persuade budget holders that alternative regimes for prisoners experiencing mental health problems is a good investment. Such persuasion is often made more difficult in the face of hostile tabloid stories about cushy regimes for lags, rapists and child molesters. All funding submissions have to demonstrate value for money, but how do you put a measurement on an improvement in self-esteem, or put a value on a smile, a head held higher, or participation in an activity where there was none previously? There will be often opportunities for access and short-term funding for imaginative pilot projects, but at the end of those, no matter the perceived success, the usual outcome is, if you wish to continue, you mainstream the funding, and this has to be found from a budget which is required to be pruned year on year. You don't have to be very clever to realise that it's cheaper, certainly in the short term, to keep locked up those prisoners whose mental health makes them challenging or makes them high maintenance. Theatre Nemo has shown over the past few years in Berlin that their brand of support for prisoners with mental health problems works for many and complements other mental health interventions. The Governor of Berlin should be congratulated for having the foresight and courage to continue to provide creative mental health interventions for which there is no payback in terms of prisoner learning hours or key performance indicators. The Theatre Nemo development plan highlights a desire to extend their work with individuals following liberation and to link in with the life coaching project to do this. Isabel also believes that there is a potential in working with families of prisoners. There may be some real merit in working with prisoners and their families prior to and following release. Community justice authorities may wish to support a link-up between Theatre Nemo and the Life Coaching Project to achieve this end. Extending work with prisoners experiencing mental health problems can be a huge challenge. The problems of mental ill health in prisons appears to be getting worse. In a recent article in the November issue of the Prison Service Journal, Stephen Shaw, the Prison and Probation Ombudsman, said, "As one of my most experienced colleagues said to me recently, prisons are full of people not ill enough for secondary care, but too difficult for primary services." Perhaps a report by the Chief Inspector of Prisons for Scotland, due to be published later this year, on mental ill health in prisons, may give some added impetus for greater emphasis on mental health interventions. I would like to conclude with a quote from Lady Smith, a High Court judge who was the principal speaker at the launch last year of the Chief Inspector of Prisons' annual report. She said, "Punishment should not diminish hope. I believe that Theatre Nemo to date have given lots of prisoners renewed hope." Thank you.
Well, I don't know about you, but I came over in the train this morning thinking that this would be, a nice, easy day, just sit back and relax. But actually, thanks to those actors and the actress, and thanks to John McCaig and Isabel, I don't know about you, but I've suddenly begun to realise that there's an awful lot more to this than maybe we first expected, and a lot more to think about, and most important, to talk about. And we're just ahead of time now, so we're going to go out, and if you didn't get a chance to get some caffeine into your system, it's coffee. Thereafter, follow someone, by the way, that looks as though they know what they're doing. If you can remember filling in one of these, we're off to workshops where we're really going to roll our sleeves up and get down to actually tackling this in a lot more detail. Lunch is at 12:30, back in the foyer, And should you get grossly overworked and enthused somewhere, back here for 1:15, where we hope to take the session on this afternoon. But I think that that's been a tremendous start this morning. Well done to that team.